Imagine a man so wealthy that when he traveled across continents, entire economies struggled to recover. For years, imagine a ruler whose fortune was so vast that even today, historians find it almost impossible to calculate. A king who ruled an empire overflowing with gold. An emperor whose name became a legend across Africa, the Middle East, and Europe. His name was Mansa Musa. And this is the extraordinary story of the richest man who ever lived. Yet here's the remarkable part. Despite becoming one of history's most famous rulers, millions of people today know almost nothing about him. How did an African emperor become wealthier than the kings of Europe? How did his empire become the center of global gold trade? And how did one journey across the Sahara Desert change the medieval world forever? Today, we uncover the forgotten story of Mansa Musa and the mighty Mali Empire. Chapter 1: Before the richest man came to power. To understand Mansa Musa, we must travel back more than 700 years. This was a time before European ships sailed regularly to West Africa, before colonial borders divided the continent, before many of today's modern nations even existed. Across the western regions of Africa, a powerful empire was rising, an empire unlike any the world had ever seen. The Mali Empire. Its land stretched across vast territories. Its influence reached thousands of miles beyond its borders. Its merchants crossed deserts. Its scholars exchanged ideas with distant civilizations. Its rulers commanded enormous respect. But the true foundation of Mali's power was hidden beneath its soil. Gold. During the 14th century, gold was more valuable than almost anything else. Kings fought wars to obtain it. Merchants risked their lives crossing the deadly Sahara Desert. Entire economies depended upon it. And astonishingly, much of the world's known gold passed through the Mali Empire. Every caravan searching for fortune, every merchant hoping to grow rich, every kingdom seeking wealth, eventually looked toward Mali. The birth of a future emperor. Very little is known about the childhood of Mansa Musa. The historical records are limited. But what historians do know is that he was born into the royal Keita dynasty, a family descended from the legendary emperor Sundiata Keita, the founder of the Mali Empire. Unlike many princes raised only to fight wars, young Musa received an education fit for a great ruler. He studied leadership, religion, trade, law, diplomacy, and the difficult art of governing a vast empire. He learned that real power was not simply measured by the size of an army. It was measured by wisdom, justice, and the ability to unite people under one vision. No one could have imagined just how extraordinary his future would become. An unexpected road to the throne history often changes in unexpected ways. According to medieval accounts, Musa was never expected to become emperor. His predecessor, often identified as Abu Bakr II, became fascinated by the mysteries of the Atlantic Ocean. He reportedly assembled a great fleet of ships, determined to discover what lay beyond the western horizon. Then, he disappeared, never to return. Historians continue to debate every detail of this remarkable story, but one fact remains widely accepted. Around the year 1312, Mansa Musa became emperor of the Mali Empire. Few people realized that history had just witnessed the rise of one of the greatest rulers the world would ever know, a kingdom built on gold. When Mansa Musa inherited the throne, he inherited something far greater than a kingdom. He inherited opportunity. The Mali Empire controlled some of the richest gold-producing regions on Earth. Its merchants exchanged gold for salt, fine textiles, books, horses, and luxury goods arriving from North Africa and beyond. Cities such as Timbuktu and Gao flourished. Bustling markets filled their streets. Scholars debated ideas from across the Islamic world. Merchants spoke dozens of languages, and caravans arrived almost every day. Under Mansa Musa's leadership, trade expanded, prosperity increased, and Mali's reputation spread farther than ever before. Travelers described a kingdom unlike anything they had seen, a land where wealth appeared limitless, But the greatest display of Mansa Musa's power had not yet happened. Soon, he would begin a journey across the Sahara Desert, a journey that would astonish kings, leave merchants speechless, and make his name famous across the known world. In the next chapter, the richest man in history sets out on the most legendary pilgrimage the medieval world had ever witnessed. The year was 1324. By now, the wealth of the Mali Empire had become legendary across West Africa. But beyond the vast Sahara Desert, very few people truly understood the scale of its riches. That was about to change. One emperor, one sacred journey, and one caravan unlike anything the medieval world had ever seen would forever change how the world viewed Africa. Chapter 4. The journey begins as a devoted Muslim. Mansa Musa had long dreamed of making the sacred pilgrimage to the holy city of Mecca. For Muslims, this journey, known as the Hajj, is one of the 5 pillars of Islam. It is a journey of faith, humility, and devotion. But Mansa Musa was not an ordinary pilgrim. He was the ruler of one of the wealthiest empires on earth. Months before his departure, preparations began across the empire. Royal officials gathered supplies. Engineers planned the safest desert routes. Messengers rode ahead to inform cities and rulers along the way. Thousands of people prepared for what would become one of history's greatest royal expeditions. A caravan beyond imagination now. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine standing on the edge of the Sahara Desert. Far in the distance, a cloud of dust begins to rise. Slowly, it grows larger. Then, the first camels appear, followed by soldiers, then merchants, then scholars, then servants, then more camels, and even more people. The caravan stretches so far, its end disappears beyond the horizon. Medieval chroniclers describe an enormous procession, thousands of attendants, royal guards protecting their emperor, officials, judges, scholars, craftsmen, merchants hoping to expand trade, and countless servants supporting the journey. Then came the camels, hundreds of them, each carrying heavy loads of gold dust. Gold that shimmered beneath the desert sun. Gold that represented the unimaginable wealth of the Mali Empire. Whether every number recorded by medieval writers was exact remains uncertain, but historians agree on one remarkable fact. The scale of Mansa Musa's pilgrimage was extraordinary, unlike anything most people had ever witnessed. Crossing the Great Sahara. The Sahara Desert is one of the harshest places on Earth. By day, temperatures become almost unbearable. By night, the cold settles across the endless sand. Powerful winds can erase entire trails within minutes. Water is precious, and a single mistake can cost lives. Yet Mansa Musa's expedition moved with remarkable discipline. Experienced desert guides led the caravan from one oasis to the next. Every stop became an opportunity to rest, to pray, to trade, and to help those in need. Wherever the emperor traveled, stories of his generosity spread ahead of him. Village after village, town after town, people gathered simply to witness the arrival of the legendary king from Mali. The emperor arrives in Cairo. After weeks of crossing the desert, the caravan finally reached the magnificent city of Cairo. At the time, Cairo was one of the greatest cities in the Islamic world. Its crowded markets overflowed with spices, silks, books, jewels, and merchants from 3 continents. Yet even this great city had never seen anything like Mansa Musa. Crowds filled the streets, merchants paused their business, scholars and nobles watched in amazement as the emperor of Mali entered the city. According to the medieval historian Al-Umari, Mansa Musa gave generously wherever he went. He offered gold to the poor. He rewarded scholars. He presented magnificent gifts to officials. And he paid generous prices for the goods he purchased. Gold flowed through Cairo, almost as if it had no value at all. When generosity changed an economy. But there was one consequence no one had expected. There was suddenly too much gold. As enormous quantities entered Cairo's markets, the value of gold began to fall. Prices shifted. Merchants struggled to adjust. Trade was disrupted. Modern historians continue to debate exactly how long these economic effects lasted, but they broadly agree on one astonishing fact. Mansa Musa's generosity had a real impact on regional gold markets. Think about that. Few people in all of history have become so wealthy that simply spending their fortune changed an economy. Mansa Musa was one of them. The world learns the name of Mansa Musa. News of the emperor spread quickly. Merchants carried the story north. Scholars carefully recorded eyewitness accounts. Travelers repeated the tale in marketplaces from North Africa to the Middle East. Soon, even Europe began hearing whispers of an African emperor whose wealth seemed beyond imagination. For the first time, millions beyond Africa began to recognize the immense prosperity of the Mali Empire. Yet for Mansa Musa, the pilgrimage was never only about gold. When he returned home, he brought back something even greater: knowledge, books, architects, scholars, new ideas. And with them, he would begin building one of the greatest centers of learning the medieval world had ever known. In the next chapter, gold will build cities, knowledge will transform civilizations, and the legendary city of Timbuktu will shine as one of the greatest intellectual capitals in human history. When Mansa Musa returned home, he brought far more than stories from his pilgrimage. He returned with a vision that would transform the Mali Empire from one of the richest kingdoms in the world into one of its greatest centers of learning. Because Mansa Musa understood something many rulers never did. Gold can make a kingdom wealthy, but knowledge can make a civilization immortal. Chapter 7. Building more than an empire. Most kings use their wealth to build armies. Some build extravagant palaces to glorify themselves. Others wage endless wars, seeking even more power. Mansa Musa chose a different path. He invested in people. He invested in education. He invested in faith. And he invested in the future. Across the empire, new mosques were built, schools expanded, trade centers flourished, roads improved, markets became even more active. The government strengthened its administration, making it easier to govern a vast and diverse empire. Under his leadership, the Mali Empire experienced one of the greatest periods of peace, prosperity, and cultural achievement in its history. The rise of Timbuktu among all the cities of the empire. One stood above the rest: Timbuktu. Today, many people hear the name Timbuktu and imagine a remote place at the edge of the desert. But more than 700 years ago, it was one of the world's greatest cities, situated at the crossroads of the trans-Saharan trade routes. Timbuktu connected West Africa with North Africa, the Middle East, and beyond. Caravans arrived carrying salt, gold, ivory, fine textiles, books, and ideas from distant lands. Its streets echoed with many languages. Its markets buzzed with merchants from across the continent. Its mosques welcomed worshippers from every corner of the empire. Mansa Musa saw the city's extraordinary potential, and he resolved to make it a beacon of knowledge for the world. Where knowledge became wealth in the 14th century, books were among the most valuable possessions a person could own. Each manuscript had to be copied by hand. Some took months to complete, others years. In Timbuktu, books became treasures. Scholars built private libraries. Families carefully preserved manuscripts across generations. Students traveled hundreds, sometimes thousands of miles, just to study there. Subjects such as mathematics, astronomy, medicine, law, theology, literature, and philosophy were taught and debated by some of the finest scholars of the medieval world. For many people, knowledge itself became a form of wealth. A legacy in stone, determined to build institutions that would endure. Mansa Musa invited the renowned Andalusian scholar and architect Abu Ishaq al-Sahili to his empire. Working alongside local craftsmen, architectural traditions flourished. One of the era's most celebrated landmarks, the Jingwariber Mosque, became a symbol of both faith and learning, constructed from earth, timber, and local materials. Its design reflected the ingenuity of West African builders, while embracing influences from across the Islamic world. It was more than a mosque. It became a place where teachers instructed students, where scholars debated ideas, and where knowledge was carefully preserved for future generations. The world takes notice. As traders returned to their homeland, they carried remarkable stories. Stories of a kingdom overflowing with gold, stories of magnificent cities, stories of libraries filled with rare manuscripts, stories of an emperor unlike any other. Across North Africa, across the Middle East, and eventually across Europe, the fame of Mansa Musa continued to grow. Decades later, his image appeared on one of the most famous medieval maps ever created, the Catalan Atlas. There, he was portrayed seated upon a golden throne, holding a great piece of gold in his hand. To many Europeans, he became the very symbol of Africa's immense wealth. But those who truly understood his reign knew his greatest achievement was never the gold, it was the civilization he helped build. At the peak of greatness, by the middle of Mansa Musa's reign, the Mali Empire stood among the greatest powers of the medieval world. Its influence stretched across vast lands. Its merchants connected continents. Its scholars exchanged ideas with the greatest minds of their age. Its cities became symbols of prosperity, culture, and learning. It seemed as though the empire's future had no limits, but history reminds us that no empire remains at its peak forever. Even the strongest kingdoms will one day face new challenges, and as Mansa Musa grew older, the next chapter of his remarkable story was about to begin. In the final chapter, we witnessed the last years of Africa's legendary emperor, the gradual decline of the Mali Empire, and the extraordinary legacy that still inspires the world, more than 7 centuries later. Every great empire has its golden age. Every legendary ruler leaves behind a story, but only a few leave behind a legacy that continues to shape history. For centuries, for more than 2 decades, Mansa Musa transformed the Mali Empire into one of the most admired civilizations on Earth. Its wealth became legendary. Its cities became centers of learning. Its scholars attracted students from distant lands. Its name echoed across Africa, the Middle East, and Europe. But even the greatest kings cannot rule forever. Chapter 10. The Final Years. As the years passed, Mansa Musa grew older. He had achieved what few rulers in history ever could. He had united a powerful empire, strengthened its economy, expanded its influence, and invested in knowledge that would outlive his own lifetime. The exact year of his death remains uncertain. Most historians believe he died around the year 1337. Like many events from medieval West Africa, the historical records are incomplete. Yet one thing is beyond question. When Mansa Musa left this world, he left behind an empire at the height of its power, the challenge of preserving greatness. His successors inherited immense wealth. They inherited thriving cities, busy trade routes, powerful armies, and an empire respected across continents. But history has shown building an empire is often easier than preserving one. Over time, internal rivalries weakened central authority. Some provinces sought greater independence. Competition over trade routes intensified. Neighboring kingdoms grew stronger. Among them, the rising Songhai Empire would eventually become the dominant power in West Africa. Slowly, the influence of Mali began to fade, not because of one disastrous battle, but because of generations of political, economic, and regional change. Empires do not always fall overnight. Sometimes, they simply change with the tides of history. A legacy greater than gold. Yet today, when people remember Mansa Musa, they rarely remember the decline of his empire. They remember what he built. He showed the world that medieval Africa was home to sophisticated governments, international trade, great cities, and remarkable centers of learning. Under his leadership, Timbuktu became one of the world's most respected intellectual capitals. Thousands of handwritten manuscripts were preserved. Students crossed deserts in search of education. Teachers shared knowledge in mathematics. astronomy, medicine, law, literature, and theology. Long before many parts of the world had widespread access to books, libraries in West Africa were already preserving knowledge for future generations. That is one of Mansa Musa's greatest gifts to history. Was he truly the richest man who ever lived? People often ask, was Mansa Musa really the richest man in history? The truth is that no modern calculation can measure the wealth of a 14th century emperor with complete accuracy. There are no stock markets to compare, no modern currencies, no financial records that can capture the full value of an empire built on gold. But historians agree on one extraordinary fact. Mansa Musa controlled vast gold resources, ruled one of the wealthiest empires of the medieval world, and possessed a level of wealth almost impossible to compare with modern fortunes. His riches became legendary, but his true greatness was never measured by gold alone. It was measured by his vision, his leadership, and his commitment to learning. Closing reflection. More than 700 years have passed since Mansa Musa crossed the Sahara Desert. The great caravans have disappeared. The kingdoms have changed. The trade routes have shifted. But his story still lives on. It reminds us that Africa's history is filled with extraordinary civilizations, visionary leaders, brilliant scholars, and achievements that helped shape the world. The story of Mansa Musa is not simply the story of the richest man who ever lived. It is the story of faith, vision, leadership, knowledge, and the enduring power of a civilization that refused to be forgotten. Thank you for joining us on this journey through one of Africa's greatest stories. If you enjoyed this documentary, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another journey into the forgotten histories of Africa. Every week, we uncover the rise and fall of powerful kingdoms, the courage of legendary queens, the brilliance of ancient civilizations, and the untold stories that deserve to be remembered. Until next time, keep asking questions, keep exploring the past, because history does not truly disappear as long as there are those willing to tell its story.